Welcome to another episode of Solid Ground. The topic for today is the accuracy of the Bible. This will be a two-part series. The first part covering the Old Testament and the second part covering the New Testament.
The Bible, yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God, the Bible.
A couple of weeks ago, Business Insider published a video on how the Bible has changed in the last 2,000 years. I'm not really sure why they published that video, but it seemed evident that what they were trying to say is that the Bible is not accurate and it was foolish for anyone to believe in it. This is just another product of circularization. Hey, Business Insider, I wonder if you're brave enough to do a similar video on the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, or the teachings of Buddha. Moving on. Like Business Insider, most people today will think that the Bible is an old, antiquated book. Atheists will say that this is a book of fiction, and Muslims will say that the Bible has been corrupted. And you know what? I don't really blame the Muslims, because if the Bible is indeed accurate, then there will be no need for the Quran to be sent down. So that has to be their default position. So how do we know if such assertions or truth claims are accurate? Like any scientist will do, we will have to test such claims. Just because something is said doesn't automatically make it true. We will need to show why it is true as well. And for that, we will need to go back in time. So what is the Bible? The word Bible comes from the Latin word biblia, meaning books. Therefore, the Bible is a collection of books. The Bible contains 66 books written by 40 authors, 39 in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. One of the most remarkable qualities of the Bible is the complete unity of the message about Jesus Christ, despite the Bible being written by 40 authors over a period of 2,000 years. The Bible was not dictated by God to the authors who wrote it, like how the Quran was revealed to Muhammad. Instead, the authors who wrote the books were inspired by God through the Holy Spirit. So, how do we know that if the Bible today is the same one that was written thousands of years ago? Two things. Through the study of textual criticism, scholars are able to go through the variants to determine what the original manuscripts of the Bible said. Secondly, through carbon dating and paleography, by looking at the style of handwriting, scholars can determine when something was written. I shall go more in depth in a separate video in the future. When ancient copies differ, the discipline of textual criticism will allow scholars to reconstruct the original reading of the text. Similarly, majority of the variants which you see in the Bible are scribal and spelling errors. Why? Because the printing press had not yet been invented. Hence, people had to copy the Bible down manually by hand. Any ancient document in history that was copied down manually by hand will be prone to scribal and spelling errors. And by the way, the Quran is not excused from this fact. And I'm not talking about the Qirat or the way it's meant to be pronounced. Anyway, let's start with the Old Testament. Even though the Hebrew scriptures were destroyed through war or through the durability of the papyrus, early on in the history of Israel, there were professional copyists to preserve the writings of their people. Over time, Jewish copies developed detailed practices for copying and counting letters to keep each syllable of the text pure. Towards the end of the 5th century, a group of Jewish scholars specialized in such practices. A well-known family for this is known as the Ben Asher family. They were a Masoretic clan in the region of Tiberias. How good were these people? Masoretic scholars knew how many words and letters were in each book of the Bible. They were so good that they could show you where these words and letters belong in the various parts of the Bible. As a result, the version of the Old Testament preserved by the Masoretes, also known as the Masoretic text, is a reliable preservation of the Old Testament. However, the oldest copy of the Masoretic text dates back to the 10th century. That could be a problem. Now, isn't this really long, especially since the Old Testament was written way before Christ? This is one of the major reasons why skeptics would say that the Old Testament has changed dramatically. Despite having the Greek Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of the Old Testament that was written around 300 BC by highly trained scribes who were direct descendants of Ezra, no one knew for certain if the Masoretic text was similar to the ancient Hebrew text until 1947. So what happened in 1947? Germany surrendered in the World War.
Two German officers, looking rather incongruous in civilian clothing, sat down at the headquarters of the British Army near Naples and signed the first formal surrender of German forces.
Wait a minute, that was 1945. People know your history. In 1947, Muhammad Adib lost his sheep and didn't know where to find them. Muhammad Adib, not Little Bo Peep.
A little Bo Peep has lost her sheep and doesn't know where to find them.
Muhammad Adib was a shepherd who was strolling around the Qumran caves and he discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls by accident, hidden in a jar buried in the cave. According to Jewish culture, burying scrolls is a proper way of disposing of ancient sacred texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain fragments of all the books in the Old Testament except Esther. The Dead Sea Scrolls were believed to be written between 150 BC to 70 AD. The only complete book preserved among the manuscripts from Qumran is the Book of Isaiah, which is dated back to the 1st century BC. Because of the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, it had become clear that the text of the Old Testament had been preserved accurately over the centuries. While copying variants were present across the centuries, none of these variants actually affect anything that we believe in God or His work in the world. What the Dead Sea Scrolls demonstrated was that even over a span of centuries, the Old Testament was copied with exceptional accuracy and care. Now, when we compare the Masoretic text with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Greek Septuagint, we see an amazing reliability and consistency among all these three sources. This gives us confidence today that whatever we are reading in the Old Testament is similar to what was being read 2,000 years ago. And whatever we are reading today in the Old Testament, all 39 books, are the same books that Jesus grew up reading as well. How do we know this? Jesus confirmed this in Matthew chapter 23 verse 35. Jesus says in Matthew 23 verse 35, "And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar." Abel was the first death in the Bible in the book of Genesis. And the murder of Zechariah stands in Chronicles, which is the last book of the last section of the 24 books of the Hebrew arrangement of the Old Testament. Even though Christians have 39 books in the Old Testament and Jews have 24, they are still the same. They are just arranged differently. What do I mean by this? For example, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. These 12 prophets are considered one book in the Hebrew scriptures. However, in Christianity, they are considered 12 separate books. When Jesus said from Abel to Zechariah in Matthew 23:35, what he meant was from one canon at the start to one canon at the end. Hence, we see Jesus confirming all the books in the Old Testament. So you see, we have strong evidence to believe that the Old Testament is indeed accurate. If you were to say that the Bible has been corrupted, you would need to show me when the Bible was corrupted, where in the Bible it was corrupted, and tell me why the Bible was corrupted. You can't just say it's corrupted without providing any evidence. There's this saying, telling someone the truth is a loving act. That is the best form of love. I urge all of you to look up what I just said and don't just take my words for it. Look up what I just said. If you found this video useful, like and share it, or comment about it to let me know what your thoughts are. I'll be going through part 2 next week on the accuracy of the Bible, focusing on the New Testament. In the meantime, follow the evidence wherever it leads. Love you guys.